Welcome to Rooted, Stories of Entrepreneurship and Agribusiness, a podcast from Colorado State University's Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics. I'm your host, Lauren Chenerides. I'm currently an assistant professor of agricultural business at Colorado State University, where I teach a course on agribusiness entrepreneurship. In this podcast series, we explore stories of how people across the food and agriculture industry identify problems, create solutions, and build or improve businesses that make an impact. What makes Rooted unique is that each episode is co-hosted by students in the agribusiness entrepreneurship course who bring their own curiosity and questions to the table. Their conversations with leaders across food and agriculture are a chance to learn, reflect, and share those insights with you, our audience of students, entrepreneurs, and change makers in food and agriculture. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'm excited to share these inspiring stories with you. All right, I'm joined today by our student co-host, Bella, who's one of our agricultural business majors. And our guest today is Tim Jordan. So Tim is a service-driven entrepreneur who most recently served as president and partner of Palmer Flower Companies, an employee-owned retail florist group in northern Colorado for the last 10 years. He and his wife sold the business in 2024 after nearly a decade of growth and industry leadership as the largest retail florist in Colorado. Tim graduated cum laude from CSU in 2010 with a degree in finance. After graduating, he worked for Monsanto and went on to spend 4 years as a district sales manager supporting sales growth and dealer development across Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Kansas, and Nebraska. Today, Tim currently operates 2 companies, Mold Removal Express, founded in 2012, and SG Window Tint, which he acquired in 2010, and is actively seeking other investments in the form of small and medium-sized service businesses. Welcome to the podcast, Tim. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. And so, Bella and I are just going to dive into some questions today. So you most recently sold Palmer Flower Company, and this is the employee-owned retail florist group. So yes. That's a lot. So yes. Can you unpack that for us and tell us a little bit about a little bit about the business, then really like the exit that you did, and then we'll get into the employee-owned part later.
For sure. My wife and I started in the flower business in 2011, 2012. We bought just a little flower shop in Loveland. It's now Palmer Flowers in Loveland, but that was great. We loved it, and we loved everything about it. It's such a fun product, such a fun industry, great employees, so fun. So we bought another one actually to replace my income when I was working at Monsanto. Yeah. That second flower shop is what allowed me to become a full-time entrepreneur, if you will. So that was great for a year and a half. And then Spiro Palmer, Palmer Flowers founder, real estate mogul, commercial real estate mogul here in Fort Collins, called a meeting with me in early 2015, sizing me up as competition to open a flower shop right next to our Loveland flower shop. And in the meeting, pivoted to seeing Danielle and I as his retirement plan. So after about 9 months of courtship, we did a merger and a leveraged buyout that merged our 4 flower shops together to be Palmer Flower Companies. Bought him out. I became vice president at the time. He was president. Danielle and I took controlling interest at 65%, actually 67%. And the remaining percentage was owned by employees. At the time, 4, but with a expressed plan to move to at least 10, which is about where we got to. So there was a decade of that, I was 27. It was we went from having 15, 20 employees to 100 employees overnight. The employee owners were amazing. They're amazing. They're friends of mine to this day. I was younger than their kids. They had only ever worked for Spiro, most of them. It was a really servitude leadership couple years for me to get them to trust me, which was so interesting. And yeah, it was great. I learned so much, had so many great opportunities. As the largest retail florist, I had a lot of industry leadership opportunities. COVID did a lot of lobbying for different things to keep our business, running at that time. But a lot of different innovations that weren't just ugliness of COVID, which was so fun. And yeah, but we found a big challenge that we were probably the largest 20 or maybe 30 flower shops in the country at the time, and there was no technology to serve our business. That's what ended up being probably the biggest challenge for us, is there was just no tech to support the size that, not only the size that we were at, but then also innovations in growth in opportunities. So that's actually how we ended up finding the PE company that bought us out. We're from Albuquerque, New Mexico, two Thanksgivings ago. I was down in Albuquerque, and I knew they had just bought the largest retail florist in Albuquerque also. So I secret shopped them to see what kind of technology they were. This is secret shopped. I told them what I was doing, but and they were. It started a conversation around, hey, you're exactly our target. If you're interested, we like high brand equity, high revenue, multi-location retail florists. And we come in, we buy, and we leave the brand the same. We leave the people in place, which has been completely accurate. And then they overlay their systems. They bring HR. They have a whole IT department. They have all these things. And yeah, ultimately that's what ended up happening.
So here you are, you're owning two shops, and then 10 years later you're talking to a private equity firm about buying your business. And so that seems to be the dream for an entrepreneur, and in a 10-year time frame. So with this company that came in, what were some of the kind of concerns or things that you were prepared for as you were making that exit? Had you and your wife gone into it really clear that you were ready to get out of this business, or was it something that was just opportunistic and you happened to find this company to buy or to really take the reins?
We were frustrated at that point, especially around the technology and also it's a really challenging supply chain. It's a very complex international supply chain. Those costs had risen significantly. So those two things were really challenging for us. So I would say we were frustrated. We were not outwardly seeking an exit, but there was some competing factors there that I replaced a visionary business pillar in Fort Collins, and his name being up on the side of that building, we took very seriously. So there was a lot of consideration for what's best for the next 30 to 40 years of Palmer Flowers. And so I'll tell you, I'm not a very emotional guy, especially in business. Walking into that boardroom, having to present the idea to those 9 other employee owners about the exit was a lot. I was sweating. I was nervous. They could have thrown me out of the meeting at that point. So we didn't go into it with the expressed idea, but we took it very seriously of what was the best path forward for Palmer Flowers.
Yeah. And were the other employees also frustrated by similar things, or
no?
They
I don't. They had crucial leadership. They're probably more frustrated by me trying to innovate things and messing with their day to day than they were that. I'm sure they had different frustrations.
Sure.
No, it wasn't a super well-received thought, at the beginning. It was the right decision, but it took a lot of selling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how did they take you wanting to exit? And how long did it take to convince them?
Yeah, so the whole thing took 4 months from the whole transaction.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily fast. We renegotiated 4 leases. We negotiated the purchase contract. We had all these employee owners. Now, private equity firms are experts at this, right? So they have all of their stuff in tight packages of how to execute. But it didn't take long, but the emotions were extraordinarily high. Susan Stockwell, she's one of my favorite people in the world. She's probably the most talented floral designer in the state of Colorado. She to this day has only ever worked at Palmer Flowers. She's an original partner. Now she trusted me. I'd earned her trust, but looking her in the eyes and telling her that, there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of it was a complicated. No one talks about the emotions that happen when you decide to sell your business. There's a lot of things that happen. First of all, the job of the people buying your business is to find all the problems. Yeah. So you spend hours, days, weeks just getting torn apart, which it's all real, but it's your business. It's your baby. And then on top of that, the people. Like it's so hard to give up, especially when you have a good culture. We had an amazing culture to be like, here you go with all of these people that I've cared for the past decade that were my friends. I mean, like it's harder. Yeah. It's more emotional than you think.
Yeah, no, my mom actually, she's an eye doctor. She had her practice for years, and then she and my dad wanted to move from New York to South Carolina, and had to go through, her and her business partner had to go through the whole selling of the business, and it lasted longer than 4 months, but it was very emotional because there's people there who've been with that practice for years. Yeah. And I think we see it a lot also in the ag sector where you have succession planning with different farms. Yeah. And like, how do you, when you have land that's been in the family for so long, or a business that's been in the family for a long time, trusting your employees trust you and all, and you've developed a culture, how do you migrate from one owner to the next? And so hard. And you were young too. Yeah.
Dare I say, we'd done it pretty well because we had done 7 acquisitions by that time, that we knew what it looked like to take care of the people on the acquisition side. So we were so nervous I can hear my wife, who's a CPA and a tax accountant, say, I don't care about the money. I just want Susan to be taken care of. And we didn't expect those. We had a little glimpse into that because we had sold a couple other flower shops just as we grew and moved the structure of the business around. So we knew that there would be some emotions, but it was a lot.
Yeah. And when you made those other acquisitions, were those employees at those flower retail shops, were they then embedded into the employee-owned business, or had they been employee-owned at their previous retail shop, or did you have to convert that? I'm
not aware of any florist in the country, I don't think, that's employee-owned. Okay. It was a pretty, again, I have to attribute a lot of it to Spiro Palmer. Him and his team had come up with, they were following, honestly, Larry Kendall at the group, they really wanted to follow that model, which is full employee ownership, founded here in Fort Collins. So no, we had to assimilate those people into that, and sometimes anytime you take over a team, there's times it goes well and there's times it doesn't. I would say most of the time we have really good luck, but founders do all kinds of weird stuff for their team members. They're always giving them extra perks, which is great. That's a super awesome. I found that across the board with founders. It's awesome. You can't do that when you have a team of 120 people and there's fairness in HR. And so that was a challenge from time to time. But I would say 9 times out of 10, because we would just come into the operation and say, teach us everything. We don't know anything. Teach us how it works. Yes, there's going to be some changes. No, they're not anytime soon. We're not upheaving your world. Teach us what to do.
Yeah.
And that works really well. But sometimes there's personality conflicts.
What would you say you learned the most from your leadership role and having to integrate people into the business and you being integrated into it too?
Such a good question. I think it's all about listening. Like, as much as I could shut up, honestly, and listen to what they have to say and understand. Yes, I don't think that is the most efficient way to do it. It's likely going to change, but why? Why do you organize your orders that way? Right? Could be because you have half the retail flat cooler space than we do, or maybe you have 10% in many, many cases. But Palmer Flowers had this, Spiro had this kind of addiction with big cooler space. So the Palmer Flowers here in Fort Collins it has as much flat cooler space as all of the other retail florists north of Denver combined. So our systems didn't work when we bought a new shop that had a normal amount. So that's what it was. It was just listening. Like, in caring about them, being empathetic. I think it's super cliche, but it's when you're stressed out running a business, it's hard to always treat people as people when you do have a means to an end at the end of the day, but being super intentional about them knowing that they're just not a number to me. Then they trusted me. Then when it came time to make that change, way easier to make it.
Yeah, yeah. And, you have a couple other businesses, and how does that culture translate from each business to the other? And how do you bring that into those businesses?
I think good question. There's something that I've realized is the culture of a team is often takes on the personality of its leader. Mm-hmm. So I think it really depends on who's leading it. SG Window Tint, for example, pretty small team. We have 10 really high-performing people. It's me, right? It has this kind of higher energy, like entrepreneurial kind of culture to it. That's how our board meetings would be at Palmer Flowers, because I was leading that group. But then when you walked into the departments, you walked into Susan Stockwell's floral design department. It has Susan's kind of consistent, constant, kind, empathetic. So I think it really depends on who the direct leadership is for each of those teams. The learning how to create a culture within 100 people, it was then really easy to create a similar culture within a team of 10. Yeah. Right? It's a lot easier, but you have to protect it because it's a lot easier to get off kilter as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What made you feel comfortable out of college going right into buying a business?
Boy, if only I knew. Honestly, it was such a... It's a great question, but it's such a loaded answer of stepping off I call stepping off the cliff, right? Of buying or starting a business. You get up to that decision point, and there's so many nerves because there's so much unknown on what happens after you do that. I'm of the opinion that you can't, if you feel like it needs to be perfect, you're never going to do it. And so I had no other choice. I felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted freedom of time, financial freedom, all the cliche things. So the only way to do it was to try and to the amount of buyer's remorse or like imposter syndrome or whatever. Every single time I bought a business, I've started a new company, you feel that. And I think, to answer your question, I think the reason that I was able to step off that cliff at such a young age is it was exhilarating getting to that point. I just had blinders on. I was so excited about it, and I was so convinced that I was going to work hard enough to make it work that the remorse or the imposter syndrome showed up like 3 months later.
Yeah.
Right? Which always shows up. Every single time it shows up. So, we failed the first time we tried to buy a business. We tried to buy, it's no longer there, but there was a Cold Stone Creamery right on Elizabeth, right next to campus. And when we were, I was probably 19, I put it under contract to purchase and had no idea how to actually purchase this business and failed I picked the wrong bank, couldn't get the financing, and somebody else came in and bought it. And that kind of lit a fire into me. Like, I don't like to be told no, or I can't, or fail at something. So, I think that's what it. But 3 months in, I'm like, what did I do? I have no idea.
Do you come from an entrepreneurial family?
Yes, we do. Yeah, both Danielle and I.
Both of you.
Yeah.
Because 19 years old, feeling competent enough to know that you have to go to a bank even to get a loan. That's something that must be hardwired in there somewhere.
I had a great teacher in high school who I wasn't really connected to them emotionally whatsoever. Literally the last class, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you can have people work for you if you want instead of working for other people." And that always just kind of sat in the back of my head. And then really interesting part of my story is it didn't come from money or anything like that, and I needed to make money. So I started selling cars on my 18th birthday as an introvert, and that taught me how to sell myself, which was a really scary thing for me at that time. But I started making a pretty strong living at 18, 19 years old, but anyway, moved here and got a job doing the same thing at Markley Motors. Love Carrie, Cindy, Doug, all those guys. But a guy in the car lot put Rich Dad, Poor Dad, cliched, like start a wealth building book. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try some of this stuff. And that's kind of what started it, honestly. Yeah. And
just the right people, the right piece of information, a book 100%. That just spoke to you at the time.
And working hard.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was going to school till noon, and then I was working from noon to 8 on the car lot.
Yeah.
Working every weekend, and I just didn't know any other way to do it.
Yeah.
What made your first, when you first bought your first company, what made that successful? The buying process of it.
The buying?
Yeah.
Awesome banker. He's my banker to this day. I shout him out every time. Chris Burns. He's the commercial president at Bank of Colorado, but I don't know why. 20 years old, sitting across the table, was at Wells Fargo at the time. He's like, "I believe in you guys," and he helped guide us through SBA process. For those of you that know SBA, Small Business Administration, most business acquisition loans are actually basically require an SBA backing or an SBA approval for a variety of reasons. It's a federally backed loan that's serviced by a local or large bank. And it has a bad reputation of being a really challenging loan to get in a really hard application process. Guess what? It's just a business plan. Like, all they ask for is a detailed business plan. So he guided us through that process, and I remember to this day when we got the approval. It was a very exciting time, but that's what made the acquisition successful. What's made the business successful is that we struggled and we didn't give up. That's really such an identifying factor of people that have successful businesses and others. It's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard.
You just really have to stay dedicated to it. Yeah.
You have to try so many different things. I didn't know anything about digital marketing at that time, but that was the only way to generate. We were selling commercial residential window tinting. We didn't do cars when we bought the business. We bought a customer list and a process of how to tint home and business windows. Nobody knows that you can tint your home or business, or why you would tint your home or business windows. So it became this digital education process that we had no clue how to do it, and persevering through the fail, struggle process I think that's what's made it successful.
Do you feel like you had to have passion to continue that, grit of continuing on? What drove you to keep going?
It's such a good question. I didn't have any passion related to window tinting. Nothing. Didn't know anything about it. We gained some for the flower shop just because it's such a fun
Right.
industry, but really had none going in. I think it was a conviction of seeing others fail, other entrepreneurs, not even entrepreneurs. This was right after the Great Recession. I mean, I was in macroeconomics during the Great Recession, and I saw so many people struggle and fail. I just didn't want. I think that's what it was.
Right.
I was so resistant to falling into that pattern.
Yeah. And so Cold Stone and then to window tinting. How did you discover because this was your first business?
Yeah.
So you tried with Cold Stone, that didn't go, and then the window tinting. How did you learn about that?
Biz Buy Sell.
Buy Sell.
It's Zillow for businesses.
Okay.
It's been around longer than Zillow. It's basically the only aggregation that I'm aware of digital aggregation. I think there's a couple copycats now, but at the time, at least, it was the only aggregation of businesses for sale. I still have the same automated searches set up to this day that I had 20 years ago on Biz Buy Sell, and I've bought multiple businesses off those automated searches.
Amazing.
And so, I found Cold Stone on Biz Buy Sell. I've also found Sunglow was the name of SG at the time.
Yeah.
We just found it on Biz Buy Sell. And we thought it worked like real estate, so we hired a broker to represent us. Actually, business transactions don't work that way. It's only the buyers basically hire representation, and it's on the the sellers hire representation via a broker. Buyers either have to represent themselves or pay a consultant or a broker to represent them.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned business plans. So how important are business plans to running, to getting loans, or at what point in your career, like how often are you going to your business plan? How often are you updating it? How often are you required to keep an eye on that?
I think it depends on what kind of partnership you have. I haven't updated a business plan for SG in a long time, just because I've known it and I know the direction. We do annual pro formas and projections, budgets for everyone, and monitor those. But buying a business and starting a business, you have to have as in-depth as you could possibly get. I imagine that's all changed with AI and ChatGPT and all that, but that's the process of writing the plan. It's not the plan. It's the process of considering all of the challenges, considering your competition, understanding intimately your competition, pricing strategy, pro forma, especially cash flow pro formas, but obviously P&L pro formas as well. It's crucially important. What's interesting is it's so important at the outset, and then it's also important when you sell. It's not that you write. Well, no, you do. When you go to sell a business, what a broker will ask you for is effectively a business plan. Tell me all of your competition. Tell me the opportunities in the marketplace. Show me your last 3 years of financials broken down and categorized and all those kinds of things. So I think it's critically important. The whole planning component is critically important at either end of it. What you do on an ongoing plan as you're operating a business is I think really depends on your structure. I think it looks a little bit different once you get a little bit more granular. At that point, we start breaking into chunks. Traction really, Entrepreneur Operating System really argues for a quarterly planning cadence. And so that's what we follow. We have a 10-year plan, rolled down to a 3-year plan, but we really focus on basic outline of an annual plan and then quarterly goals and plans to achieve that annual plan. So the cadence changes a little bit.
Yeah, like once the bookends, you need the plan, the guts, you kind of are focusing on the strategy, but breaking it down into actionable bite-sized chunks.
Exactly. How do we, sure, we want to grow 10% this year.
Yeah.
What needs to be true this quarter?
Yeah.
For us, that's one of our KPIs. For us at SG Windowton is we need to increase our year-over-year lead volume by at least 8%. We're converting at a higher rate. So built that as part of our quarterly plan to roll up to our 10-year plan, or 1-year annual plan.
Yeah.
I kind of have an odd question, but how often do you meet with like each employee? Like how often do you have a meeting with them to talk about what they're doing and kind of like making sure that they're staying accountable and stuff like that?
Great question. Direct reports weekly. We have a weekly, that gets broken down further, right? Because I only have so many people that report to me. They have direct reports to them. But especially at a leadership level, we have a 90-minute exact same agenda, once weekly meeting. One of the biggest unlocks for me in my whole career is in that we look at our numbers. It's called a weekly scorecard, or that's what EOS calls it. That's what we call it, where we look at 3 to 5 crucial KPIs that from last week compared to goal and year over year. And I know, even though I haven't been in a few of our shops in weeks or months, I know exactly the condition of them because I meet with their leadership on a weekly basis and I review in detail their crucial numbers on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And these other KPIs, key performance indicators, what are there? So you mentioned 3. Do you have kind of a portfolio of ones that you're constantly like, okay, I got to check on these 3, or do you see that evolve over time, the metrics that you're measuring?
Definitely, I would say at 3 the first 3 don't evolve. Right? The next couple do, if you will. So we look at about 5. So we have new inbound leads, right? That's forward thinking, or predictive of the future. New business scheduled, not completed, also predictive of the future. New business completed. How did we do? But so that way we're looking back at last week. Okay, how's the trajectory forward? And then how was business within that week? Then the next couple will rotate on a quarterly basis based on goals. We just rolled off like volume of 5-star reviews. We were so successful in building out a review system that we get 10 times the reviews we did last year. So we don't even need to track it anymore. Doesn't matter because there's so many of them. So now we rolled on some more granular employee level, like where is the new business coming from a team level to identify opportunities, successes, celebrate wins, help fix problems early on. So those second tier of them evolve. I would say an EOS coach would say quarterly. I don't know that we change ours every quarter, but that's kind of how we think about it.
Yeah, that's great. And, for someone that's starting out, and I would say like experience is probably really important for them to learn about, these different, like when you're in a management role and you're the one that's going to be meeting with your employees and tracking all these things, that looks a lot different than if you're just starting out. So one of the things that we talk about is, yes, let's get experience, but what could experience look like for somebody who's may not be ready at 20 years old to go to biz, buy, sell and buy a business, but what does that experience, what could that experience look like?
So my recommendation there is get into, I think, sales, honestly. And the reason is every business you own, every day as an owner, you have to be able to sell. And you have to not sell like, here, come buy my product, but you have to, the process of selling somebody something is getting them to trust you and then conveying the value. That's how you authentically sell somebody. That's basically all you do, not all you do, all the front side that you do as an entrepreneur. And probably the most important piece is you, Mrs. Prospective Customer or partner or vendor there's so many relationships where it's just based on your knowledge or your ability to get them to trust you and believe in you. I think that is very valuable. Any way you could get in front of a profit and loss statement, an actual real live profit and loss statement, probably the easiest way to do that is volunteering or on small nonprofits because they're pretty open with their P&Ls. But I think I'm probably going to talk about this here in a few minutes in this discussion. Knowing that in having the reflex of being able to accurately read a profit and loss statement, so crucial. I was so lucky that I took a class at CSU at the very end. It's 200 or 300 level class. It was financial statement analysis, and it was taught at the time by a professor who was kind of adjunct. He had spent years and years and years as a CFO of small and large companies, super tactical. That time, learning about red flagging and just analyzing a profit and loss statement is probably the most used skill I've to this day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's great to also hear that your college classes are still carrying forward.
I already owned a business at that point, but it spoke to me like I literally use it to this day.
Yeah, and sometimes like something like that, looking at financial statements can be intimidating. So when you gain proficiency in that, or just like some level of fluency in that, it can dispel a lot of those nerves that might come with reading a bunch of numbers on a page.
I completely agree. And honestly, it probably goes back to your original or one of your earlier questions on like what gave me the confidence. It's like one thing that really gave me the confidence is you put P&Ls in front of me, I can read them. I can figure it out, and not immediately. I mean, it takes time to, but I think getting in front of real live profit and loss statements as early as is something I see so few prospective entrepreneurs do. And it's probably one of the biggest unlocks for them.
Well, it's also you're a bit that you have this sales and you have the technical piece, and we see a lot of times with founders, startups, is that there's two founders, and you were working with your wife too. So she's very technical, but we do see there's the founder who's certainly more invested in, okay, what's the value proposition? Let me sell it to you, and branding, all that, the marketing side. Then you've got the tech guy who's just crunching away at the more technical pieces. So the fact that you had that early on, or you had the awareness early on to kind of straddle both camps, that seems helpful.
I was lucky in that I really wasn't your traditional entrepreneur, like high energy idea, like that's honestly kind of evolved for me over time. I was a little bit more technical at that point. I really loved that piece of it, which is the only way I would have ever convinced my hyper successful type A wife to ever buy a business, was being able to speak that language with her a little bit for sure. So
awesome. So I guess we'll round it out with one last question is, if you could give either your younger self or maybe the current generation, because we're in such a new time in the world with AI, like you mentioned, what advice would you give for starting out? And what would that be?
You guys did a really good job of kind of fleshing out my thoughts on what I think are some of the most important things. So I'm going to circle back to two things that we talked about. One is knowing the numbers, knowing how to evaluate what's a good opportunity and what's a bad opportunity. I think that's where people just starting out struggle so much. There's so much unknown already, right? I've never owned a business. I don't know how this transaction's going to go. What do you mean I need an attorney and an accountant? Like, there's just so many unknowns. If you can be confident in whether this is a good opportunity or a bad opportunity, I think that helps so much. And it comes back to getting live rounds on P&L analysis, or just understanding it. Going to the Larimer County SBDC, and they have training on profit and loss statements and financial statements. It's finding ways to get tactical about knowing what the numbers mean. I mean, we talked about two businesses that I bought. There was, I think it was 82 in between those that I analyzed during that period of time, from the Cold Stone to the first flower shop. And I had to know which of those were good opportunities and which were bad opportunities. Yeah. So the other thing is, you just have to start. If you wanted to start, and if you have an idea of a business that you're passionate about, the only way to start it is to start doing it. And that sounds so like cliche, but what I see a lot of people doing is delay till the perfect moment. And that perfect moment never comes. Or maybe it comes and it's 3 or 5 years too late and they've missed the opportunity. That happens so frequently. You just have to try it. You have to take the risk. You have to put yourself out there. That's another, we talked about what people don't talk about entrepreneurs. Like, my name is attached to these businesses. Like that, there's risk associated with that. There's this, like, am I going to be good enough? What if I fail? Like, what if it doesn't work? Like, that's just so, that never goes away. Also, I'll tell you. That maybe that's helpful in that, like, that fear of that never goes away.
Yeah. And it serves as a driver to you, it seems, or like it serves as fuel for you, and probably a lot of entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah.
I recently started a new company it's around coaching. It's a peer mentorship group for service business owners, and I have a couple partners in it. And I looked them in the eyes. I said that the only way to do this is if failure isn't an option. I'm not going to do it if failure isn't an option, because that's the mentality that it takes to push it forward.
Yeah. Because that's another thing too. It's like failure is going to happen, and it's just not letting that influence your next move. You have to like overcome that in a sense, and like you're saying too, like the imposter syndrome, the regret, like these little things that just will never go away, but you just gotta stick to it and have that drive to achieve.
I was being coached today by actually a CSU real estate professor who's a close friend of mine, Greg Rader, and we're working on a deal together, and he just said, I don't know if it's right for me to already pivot this concept to that direction. He said, Tim, how many times have you pivoted? It's just so interesting. Like, there's still, after all the awesome things that we've done, I still feel that. And so looking at somebody who hasn't tried it yet, I just know how overwhelming that can be. And there's only one way past it, and that's to try it and to do it. And I know that sounds like the worst advice possible, but it really is the truth.
Yeah, you just gotta do it, and I like that. And we can end on just endorsing Nike, with some mentorship and support system in place.
Of course.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Tim, it's been so great to chat with you. I'm sure we could talk for hours about all your businesses. And thanks, Bella, for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll just see you next time.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome.